Psalm 18:7. Then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations of the hills also quaked and were shaken, because he was angry.
A first-of-its-kind warning across Japan Thursday for a long-feared megaquake, following a powerful 7.1 magnitude earthquake that rocked the country's southern coast. Reverberations felt for miles, caught on cameras in offices along the coast and at an airport.
Please evacuate right now.
Tsunami warnings issued following the quake, urging some residents to leave the seaside, but so far, injuries and damage have been minimal. Researchers have long warned of a megaquake, 8 or 9 magnitude, potentially even more damaging than the 9.1 that set off a tsunami in 2011 and ravaged Japan's northeast coast. The disaster, one of the worst in this century, killing more than 18,000 people, leaving parts of the country in ruin, including a nuclear disaster at Fukushima that rattled the world.
There was a magnitude 7.3 earthquake that happened 2 days before that earthquake. And about 5% of the time, we see that there is an earthquake called foreshock that precedes a larger event.
Japan sits on the circum-Pacific belt known as the Ring of Fire, where tectonic plates meet, leading to lots of quakes and volcanic activity. The U.S.'s Pacific coast also on the Ring of Fire. Southern California just getting hit with the 5.2 magnitude quake Wednesday. Experts believe we should be ready for one of those mega quakes too.
There's a lot of effort being put into preparing for such an event in terms of both the seismic hazard, the ground shaking, and the tsunamis.
Preparing for what seems unthinkable, but might be inevitable.
Luke 21:11. And there will be great earthquakes in various places, and famines and pestilences, and there will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. There are 5 earthquakes that occur during the 7-year tribulation, 3 of which are called great earthquakes. The largest and final earthquake to ever rattle planet Earth takes place during the last half of the 7-year tribulation, as we read in Revelation 16:17-20. Then the 7th angel poured out his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, "It is done." And there were noises and thunderings and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such a mighty and great earthquake as had not occurred since men were on the earth. Now the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon was remembered before God, to give her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Then every island fled away, and the mountains were not found.
It was so much fun to see, particularly the crowd sort of getting behind as we have a bit of an earthquake here in Los Angeles. So we're just going to make sure that our studio lights, everything stays safe, everything's shaking. You good, Mylan? Everybody good? All right. Thank you so much for bearing with us through that. Our studio was shaking just a little bit.
Powerful earthquake rocking the Los Angeles area. The U.S. Geological Survey reports the epicenter of this 4.4 magnitude quake was just a few miles outside of downtown L.A. near Pasadena.
Okay, and now
we're looking at Studio City right now. This is just a video of taken up. There you see the shaking. Must have been one of their outside cameras there, but you can really tell the shaking there from that particular camera in Studio City.
But let me tell you, it was strong. I mean, there were people inside this newsroom when it happened. There was real panic, and people felt it across the region.
Wildfires, earthquakes, gonna look crazy here. So,
well, we're used to these earthquakes where you feel a little bit of shaking and then maybe it'll pass. But this one kind of felt like it lasted beyond the initial 10-second shaker.
Chicago with the pickle spear and the peppers and the tomatoes. That's an earthquake. That's an earthquake.
Oh, wow, that is a real earthquake.
Whoa, that is a real one, guys. All right.
Whoa. That is real.
Hold on.
Feeling it pretty strong here in the studio right now, and we are waiting for information to find out exactly where that earthquake was centered and the size of it, but feeling the shaking here in the studio, I feel like it was pretty big or pretty close to the location.
People from all over Southern California felt this as far away as Hemet. But, you know,
this was definitely one of those times where you could hear it rumbling, you could feel it rumbling. At first I was thinking, there's construction being done in the building, shaking things up a little bit, but then it got a little stronger, continued on a little longer, certainly. One that rattled me a little bit, and the earthquakes usually don't do that to me, just growing up here and feeling so many of them, but this certainly was a little bit of a surprising jolt for me here.
woke us all up.
I mean, we're used to earthquakes, but this was a little bit more than usual.
It was. I've lived through the Sylmar and all the other ones, and small, little, all of those. And this one was hard. Just a big punch to the building. It shook, and so I was thinking, oh my God, I hope it's planted far down so that we don't topple over. But we didn't. We're still standing.
And there have been smaller earthquakes in California recently, but Caltech says those ones are not believed to be connected to this one, Jay.
I was. It's interesting because it was very strong, and I was in Pasadena. I just so happened to be here in Pasadena on an errand, and I was inside a showroom, in an auto showroom, getting a car repair of all things, and the entire place shook pretty violently, not once but twice. So it felt like two pretty large jolts, and everybody just kind of looked at each other. And it's kind of procedure and protocol for the place when you have an emergency, any kind of emergency, that everybody goes outside. So they just instructed everybody to walk outside and out from underneath any awnings or overhangs, and we stood there and we waited for everything to calm down. But it was pretty quick, I will say, but two pretty large jolts. And talking to several people who have worked there in the Pasadena area for quite some time, they all were saying that they haven't felt anything this strong in a very long period of time.